Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this. To the offseason in the SEC. And for me, I have a list of five that I think were the biggest winners. And like, I feel like that list could have gone 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams deep. I don't know if there's a conference where top to bottom, you can look at it and say this team, this league was very,
Hey,
very,
Rob,
very well funded,
that's
and they
why.
executed. Yeah, they executed that spending well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, the SEC's got money. They got money. All these programs got money, and they spent their money. Um, you look at what the new coaches did in particular, and again, Cal going to Arkansas kind of redefined the market in a sense, right? It allowed Scott Drew to have more money at Baylor. Nate Oates got more money at Alabama. Obviously, Mark Pope came in and got money at Kentucky. So I think again there was already money in the league. Ole Miss, Chris Beard, ton of money there. Auburn's got enough money to be able to kind of retain and reload a little bit when they lost Aiden Holloway. They got a really good point guard to me in JP Pegues that I think will be a critical. Like I think finally I feel good about Auburn's point guard play because of JP Pegues. I really do. I haven't felt good about it really in 2 years. And now I feel like, okay, he's got a guy he can trust. That's a veteran that can score, that can also facilitate. So I like them. But Alabama leads the list for me. Now, again, we don't know if Mark Sears is definitely coming back, but I think all signs point to Mark Sears coming back to Alabama, withdrawn from the NBA draft, and what they've done in retention and keeping the right guys. I know a lot of people think they lost Rylan Griffin. That was a hard hit to take, but man, they've done a great job. I mean, it kind of surprises me a little bit, but again, nothing really surprises me these days with Nate Oates. I mean, you're keeping Grant Nelson, you're probably keeping Sears. Jaron Stevenson's back. You
You
got
know
a
what he's done a
great
really good
freshman
job with,
class.
Jeff? He's done a really good job with being able to develop roster continuity, which is not something that a lot of programs have been able to figure out a way
Yeah.
to do, right? Like if Mark Sears comes back, it'll be year three with Mark Sears. He's getting year two with Grant Nelson, year two with Latrell Wright. So Jaron Stevenson is a guy that could be there 2, 3, 4 years, depending on how quickly he develops. You're looking at a guy like Aiden Holloway, who will probably be there a couple of years, right? Especially if Mark Sears comes back, you're probably looking at 2, maybe 3 years from a guy that is a McDonald's All-American or a former McDonald's All-American. He's got 4 freshmen coming in this class, none of whom look like guys that are going to end up being one and done. So again, he's going to be able to keep those guys around for a little bit. And you supplement that with plugging holes in your roster with a Cliff Amore, with a Chris Youngblood, with the Houston Millette. So he's built his program very similarly to what UConn has done under Dan Hurley. And I think that that's kind of the way that you want to do it. I also, look, we talk about winners of the offseason. You mentioned JP Pegues. Sometimes, to quote the great Trilly Donovan, the best gets are the ones that you already have. Janai Broom coming back to school is maybe the biggest decision that we had in the offseason, right? Like he had an opportunity to probably go pro and find a way to be able to make some money at the next level, right? And he's coming back to school. And for me, I think you got to pencil him in. Like you talk about guys that you want to make automatic, like first team All Americans right off the bat. And you're going to have a hard time convincing me that Janai Broom is not a guy that's going to end up being a first team All American. And that shouldn't be a preseason first team All American heading into this season.
Yeah, I just listen to me. Big Cliff was about as big of an addition for a team as there was because without him, Alabama's kind of like what they were last year, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe they can make a run of the Final Four, but it would be one of those where you're like, all right, they're going to run out of gas. They're not going to have enough to stand up to the big boys once they get to the Final Four. Now you look at the way this team is put together, and you're like, okay, like this is a team that honestly has the pieces to be able to beat anybody in the country as long as Mark Sears comes back. And again, I love Darian Reed. I saw him play 2 summers. I think he's one of the best incoming freshmen in the country, an elite defender. Jaron Stevenson's going to take the next step. They've got you look at their team and how it fits together. And obviously, as I said a couple weeks ago, what Alabama can do is they can beat dudes in the portal without paying the most, without being the highest
Mhm.
bidder. They can still get guys in the portal. Now they're still paying good money, but that's hard to do. There's only a few teams that can do that right now.
Yep. We talked quite a bit about Kentucky last Thursday. You guys know how big of a fan I am of what Mark Pope has put together there, and I think he's going to end up having a top 25 team. I think with Arkansas, it's very easy to look at them and say they got maybe the best player out of the portal in Janelle Davis. And then adding him with Jonas AD, you kind of have a couple linchpins there. They still have some holes on that roster that they got to figure out. I got to imagine that they are going to be in the mix quite heavily with some of the players that are currently testing the NBA draft waters.
They're going to get an
And I would not,
international guy too, Rob. They're going to get an
yeah,
international guy most likely.
and DJ Wagner maybe eventually is going to go there. So I don't want to. We've talked about them kind of ad nauseum. I do want to dive into two other SEC teams before we get into the losers of the offseason. One of them is Ole Miss, who I think has had a much better offseason than people realize. They got Jalen Murray back. They got Jamin Brakefield back. And they are bringing in Dre Davis from Seton Hall, who is really good. Sorry, Dagan Hughes, our pirate producer here. Sean Padula, who is maybe one of the most underrated players that entered the portal. I don't think people realize how good that dude was this past season at Virginia Tech. Mikhail Brown-Jones from UNC Greensboro, Malik Dia from Belmont, and Devin Barnes from Sam Houston State. All of a sudden, Chris Beard has a really good team. And then Mississippi State, man, look, that was a team the last couple of years that couldn't shoot, that couldn't score, that ran everything through a five, man, right? Chris Jans knew he had Tolu Smith and knew he had to build around Tolu Smith. This year, Josh Hubbard, who, if you haven't watched Mississippi State, might be the most exciting player in the SEC. He's coming back. Cameron Matthews is coming back. They added Kanye Clary from Penn State. They added Claudel Harris from Boston College. They added RJ Melendez, and they just added Riley Kugel, the transfer from Florida. All of a sudden, Chris Jans, with a new contract, has like 37 dudes that can go out and get you 20 on any given night, and maybe the most exciting point guard in the country in Josh Hubbard. The teams in Mississippi are going to be really, really good this season.
I think you should move down to Mississippi. Honestly, I might. I'm in favor of it. You moving down to Mississippi. My guess is your family might not be in favor of it. But yeah, like Chris Beard, obviously they've got big money with their NIL. We know what Beard can do as a head coach. A lot of people, myself included, thought in year one he might be able to get them the NCAA tournament. They retained enough. Like that's the key from last year. They retained Jalen Murray, Matthew Morrell, and Brakefield, three guys that all average in double figures. The only thing I worry about, Rob, here's the only thing I worry about. When you go through the list of players that they brought in, how many of them made an NCAA tournament last year? How many?
I don't think any of them did. Did they?
No, that's right.
I don't think any of them.
No, I don't think any of them. You got Seton Hall, didn't make it. UNC Greensboro didn't make it. Belmont didn't make it. Virginia Tech, as good a year in the numbers that Purdue put up, they were for a team that didn't win a lot of games. So that worries me a little bit. It's going to be interesting because obviously Beard has been a hell of a coach everywhere he's been. But does he do it? Like he was doing it when nobody else was, right? He was doing it when nobody else was, throwing teams together with all these different pieces and figuring it out on the fly. We saw it last year with Eric Musselman. He did it every year too, and it ran out. It kind of ran out last year. And I talked to Muss about it a little bit in Indy this past season, and even he was surprised. And I think he took it for granted that he could just throw this collection of players together and he would just figure it out, especially in January. We'll see if this happens with Chris Beard now in Oxford, if he can do it in year two and throw this collection of players together. And they're talented and they're experienced and they should be a tournament team. But this league is a beast this year.
Thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.